Today we're going to talk with Wilbert Alanen. It is October 2023, and Wilbur is one of the few remaining employees from...
Okay, can I just interject? My name is Wilbert. B-E-R-T.
Wilbert.
Not Wilbur.
Not Wilbur.
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should start again. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wilbert. Oh, I never knew that. Why do we all call you Wilbur?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people, I haven't corrected, but no, it's B-E-R-T.
Okay, Wilbert.
Yes.
And he is one of the...
Because there's only two of us in Nipigon. Well, Wilbert Mikkola died.
Oh, right.
There was just two of us here.
Right.
I'm left.
And he worked at Clark Motors, which was a well-known car dealership that was located across the corner from the Cenotaph. And
Yes.
maybe you can fill us in, first of all, Wilbur, where you worked before and how you got to come to Nipigon.
Well, how I came to Nipigon was in 1953. I finished public school. I never did attend high school. I had several uncles working for Nipigon Lake Timber at the end of the Mill Road, sawing railroad ties. And they were there, so I got a seasonal job with them. It was only seasonal work anyway, to come and work on the crew on the sawmill. And the wood came out of the lake on a jack ladder, and we sawed them into railroad ties, and they were all manually handled on the site there, and then manually loaded onto trucks and brought to the CN Railway, which came right to the little mill at the end of the road, and they were loaded into boxcars.
So you loaded them twice.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
they were handled many times
Yeah.
manually.
Right.
They even had a team of horses there with an old Finn gentleman that would haul them away from the sawmill to the landing, where they were then peeled by the peelers
Right.
before they were loaded into boxcars.
Wow.
So that I was there for 2 summers, and then my dad, he was working for St. Lawrence Corporation in Beardmore, so he decided to look for a house here, and in 1956 he bought the house that I now own.
Okay.
And we worked then in Beardmore for St. Lawrence Corporation. And then in the meantime, I worked for Dick Takanaka in Beardmore. He was another forestry contractor. And I worked for Ontario Paper Company in Heron Bay in the winter of 1957-58. And I came home on the weekends then, and my dad said that the local paper, which was, I don't know if it was called the Gazette then, but it was already published here, and
Right.
he said there's an ad in the local paper for an apprentice mechanic at Clark Motors. He said, maybe you should go check it out. So I did go, and I don't remember if Mr. Clark was there that day. But anyway, I did meet with him, and he kind of looked me up and down and questioned me, and he said, you can start anytime.
Wow.
There was no resume issued. He just sized me up and he said, you got a job.
So how old were you then?
I was 19 then, because I turned 20 on April the 17th, and I have a watch that I was given when I left Clark Motors. It's a gold watch, and it's engraved on the back. I'll put my glasses on and I can read it. That was presented to me when I left.
Wow.
But I had it wore out, so I had to tape the stem down because it kept falling out. It says, presented to Wilbert Alanen, presented to Wilbert Alanen from H.E. Clark Motor Sales Limited for faithful service April the 15th, 1958 to May the 15th, 1969.
All that on that little back
All that
there.
on that little watch.
Wow, somebody was a neat engraver
Yes, I don't know
to
where
be
it is.
able to do that,
Yeah.
Wilbert. Wow.
So I thought I'd just bring that
Yeah.
along.
Cool
And
idea. Yep.
I have another
Cool.
keepsake here that they used to put on the trunk lids of cars when they sold a vehicle. You'd have to drill a few holes in the trunk lid and just press it on.
Can you see that, Kirsten?
Yeah.
If it shows up or not.
It shows up.
And
But,
when
but anyway, this was the original one they had, because he then incorporated the company. It was called H.E. Clark Motor Sales.
Okay,
This was the forerunner to it, but I don't have one of those.
okay.
But this was, when you sold a car, if he was a really, I don't know what to use for criteria as a good customer.
Oh, okay.
They had to drill 3 holes in the trunk lid, and there were little barrel bolts that they put in there and just press it on.
Wow.
Now they use a plastic sticker or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Pretty cool.
So anyway, I got the job, and I started in April then, and it was a 5-year term to serve an apprenticeship. So I started at 90 cents an hour. I still have my first pay slip somewhere. So figure out 8 times 90.
Yeah.
How much is that a day? $8.70.
Did you get a coffee break
Oh yeah,
and a lunch break?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I used to go home for lunch
Right.
because it's just a few blocks.
Right.
But anyway, it was
Okay, who were you who were you working
okay. When I started, George DeRozier was still in the shop. But that 1958 is when the first pipeline came through Nipigon. I think it was Majestic Pipelines. So then I guess they could feel that there would be a real demand for extra people in the shop. So Mr. Clark, he hired, his name was Jerry Grenier,
Okay.
and he brought along with him Ken Dooley, who has since passed away.
That name sounds familiar.
He used to be inscriber. And Glenn Jackson. He brought those 2 men with him. They were all Class A mechanics. And Jerry Grenier became the shop foreman or service manager.
Right.
And George DeRozier moved into sales. He became the salesman there, car salesman. So Jerry was there for several years, and I was working under them. And Eddie Belanger was still
Right.
there already. I don't think he was a qualified mechanic, but he was an apprentice. So they were there for, I can't remember exactly how many years Jerry was there, but they lived on Newton Street, where Dutiels are now.
Oh, okay.
And so then, after Jerry left, there was, I think, Ken Dooley he stayed. And he stayed and became the service manager.
So maybe we should let people know what brand of vehicle Clark Motors dealt
Well,
with.
it was a Chevrolet and Oldsmobile and Chevy truck dealership. I don't remember if we ever had a Cadillac there, but I guess he could have ordered them
Right.
if need be.
Do you think more cars sold then than trucks?
Probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Where now it's swung around the other way, at least in this part of the world.
Right. Right.
So anyway, it was busy, and I had to learn how to wash vehicles because the pipeline superintendents, they had big Buicks, Cadillacs, Oldsmobiles in those days, they were loaded with chrome.
Right.
We didn't have a pressure washer. We had a garden hose in the shop. So I had to wash the cars inside and out and wipe them. And Jerry Grenay, the shop foreman, he would go and check to see if the chrome was clean, even inside. So I learned how to wash vehicles. That's why when I see some people washing their cars, I just cringe.
That's why your trucks always look so clean.
Well, I
Herman
try
will
to.
often comment, Wilbert's trucks are really, really clean.
Because I feel a clean vehicle runs better.
Yeah.
Because when I worked on them, I saw some pretty messy vehicles,
Yeah,
inside
I guess
and
so.
out.
I guess so.
But anyway, the cars were big and shiny with chrome, and so when they brought them in for service, they usually wanted them washed. And can you imagine with a garden hose washing a big car in the shop where there's
In
other
the shop.
with the other people still working? So you couldn't splash it all over. You had to direct it to the vehicle.
And obviously there was a good drain in there, because that
Well,
would have been a lot of dirt going down
yeah.
the drain.
Well, there was a floor drain. It had to be shoveled
Yeah.
out once in a while.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing I learned is how to wash a vehicle and clean the inside, so it looked like it had been thoroughly washed, not
Right.
just
Right.
brushed on the outside. So in the apprenticeship, it carried on, and then you advanced to more involved work, repairs, and a lot of oil changes. And one thing I had to learn was front-end alignments, because they had a front-end alignment machine in the corner there, which was poorly situated because you had to kind of jack the vehicle around to get it into that area.
Right.
But anyway, I used to do sometimes when it was busy season up to 5, 6, 7 wheel alignments a day. And it was a crawl space. You couldn't stand under the vehicle. There was an air hoist in there that would lift the front end up so you could do what you had to do and then let it down onto the instruments. But you had to crawl in there,
Oh boy.
and it was enough room you could sit up there, but it wasn't user-friendly.
Right.
But anyway, I survived.
So just to go back a little bit for the people who were not here when Clark Motors was, and you look at it now, it had on a front area, but the whole back of that big building was the shop area,
Yes.
right? Right. And the front was just
Front
the
was-
service.
Well, they had a parts department there.
Oh, right.
There was, as
Not
far as
sorry.
I can best remember, there was always 2 people in the parts department. Joe Kiesling was
Right.
the main person there. Walter Smart was
Oh,
the
right.
next one. And Matt Sari, he filled in then in the years that he was there.
Right.
And in the office, there were always 2 people. Robert Gordon was the office manager.
Right.
Mr. Clark's daughter, Connie, was the secretary.
Right.
And Mr. Clark, he would commute from Thunder Bay daily. It's 365,
Days a
not
year.
365 days, but the 5 days a week that he
Right.
worked.
Right.
He always came to work in a suit and tie, always wore a fedora. He was very respectable,
Right. Right.
and he had his awful little office there that he
Right.
had all his.
And am I right in my memory that on the one side they could put a car at the
Yeah.
display area?
Oh yeah, there was a big showroom, and the
right.
big doors led into the shop area. That's so you could drive it in from there.
Okay.
Double wide doors that you could drive into this curved glass corner,
Right.
and it was.
I remember.
You could put 2 in there,
Always look-
a
oh.
smaller car, and yeah,
Wow.
there was room if you kind of swung them into the parts department area there.
Wow.
Yeah, there was room for 2.
Yeah.
And he did sell, in the beginning of my time there, he did sell outboard motors. I think it was Evinrude
Okay.
or Johnson, one of the 2 where he'd sell them, and so there was a little bit of fishing tackle, but I don't think he ever had boats. I can't remember boats being there, but motors he did sell.
Okay.
And we had the gas pumps And
Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah, I can't remember if it was Shell or Texaco, because his brother Les had the bulk station at down by the CN station
Right.
for Texaco products.
Right. Right.
So one of the parts department attendants would serve gas then, when a customer came for gas.
Oh.
So there was. Oh,
There's
yeah,
a fair number of employees then.
there was
Really.
absolutely, and we had a service truck with I think it was a Holmes Wrecker boom affair on the back and winches. It wasn't a homemade deal. It was a factory purchased
Okay.
Wrecker feature that it had, and there was a fair number of service calls, especially in the winter. And in the winter, now that I recall, when people's vehicles didn't start, because the vehicles in those days had bumpers, and we had a wide bumper on the truck. You could just get behind them, and he'd be in the truck, and we'd push them down the streets until it started.
Right. Right. Right.
Either that, or then you'd pull them. But I
Right.
mean, you don't push cars now because they're nothing but plastic.
I know for sure. Yeah.
So that was quite interesting. Sometimes you'd have to push them quite a ways if they were not well maintained to get
Right.
them.
I think that he had a very good business, though.
Yeah, he was on top of things all the time.
Yeah.
And another thing I always acknowledged his loyalty to me was he went several years. He went to Florida for Christmas, or not Christmas, for a winter break.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the years in the 60s were pretty lean in January and February. There was relatively very few customers each day, so I was never laid off once during those lean times.
Wow.
There were days that I swept the shop end from one end to the other 2 or 3 times just to apply myself.
Right.
I didn't just stand in the corner and hide. I tried to do things that were part of my everyday work description.
Right.
But I always acknowledged the fact that he never ever laid me off during those lean times.
Wow.
So
And he was a little bit involved, I think, in the community because, if I remember correctly, donated vehicles or
yeah,
gave them a good deal or something.
yeah,
I remember.
he
Wasn't
was
it the first ambulance?
Yes, I remember that when we had to prepare it for the delivery of that. It was for the Legion.
Right.
Yeah, that
yeah.
he ordered this machine to their specs, I guess, that they requested, and it was well received, and we then maintained it whenever it needed something.
Right. So most people don't realize. Oh, okay. She's giving me a signal. 2 minutes, but most people don't realize though that the Legion had one of the first
Yes.
ambulance type
Yeah.
of ambulances here, which
Yeah.
would be more like an EMS response thing
Yeah.
than a true ambulance. Okay, we'll leave it there until she resets. Just before we start talking again, these were on display in one of the cabinets, obviously printed to give out to all customers.
Yes, they were.
Lots of information on this one, even for home canning. Oh, lots of menus, and the neat thing is we were just saying they have pockets in them so you could put maybe your bills or your receipts in there. So this one is from 63 and this one is from 55. Your friendly GM dealer. Wow. So I wonder how Clark ever ended up coming.
See here, he's H.E. Clark Motor Sales.
Oh, right.
And this is the original
Oh.
Clark Motor Sales.
And this is GM dealer. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
I
see,
see.
This is from this era.
Oh, okay.
This is the H.E. He
Two different eras then.
incorporated the company.
Okay. So, Wilbur, have you any idea how, has he ever comment how he ended up here and say not do a dealership in Thunder Bay?
Well, he used to be a mine captain in Beardmore, in the gold mine,
Oh,
and I think he had some business there, And then when Nipigon was starting to come around, he was here, I guess, in the 50s.
Oh,
I don't know how early he came here. Well, one is that's 55, that first
Right, yeah.
calendar.
yeah,
So it must have been in the early 50s when he decided to build that place.
Right.
He built that garage.
maybe he kind of foresaw with the Red Rock Mill
Well, could be.
booming too, that
That's
Nipigon was,
possible.
right. But
Yeah.
he built, though, I forgot that he built that,
Yeah.
that himself. Wow.
Yeah, and but he never did reside here. He moved to Thunder Bay, or I think he was probably commuting from Beardmore originally, because
Okay,
he was still working in the mine. He was a mine captain
right.
in Leach Gold Mines, and
I was thinking that it's ironic that he lived in Thunder Bay
Yeah.
but had his business here, which
Yeah.
we were very fortunate, obviously.
yeah. But just think of commuting in those days
Yeah,
every day,
yeah,
and no matter what the weather, he rarely missed a day.
right. And there's a car called an Envoy
Yes, I remember those. Yeah.
and Chevy trucks he's
And
advertising.
the Corvair. And,
Oh, right.
Remember Polyniki?
Yes,
They bought the first Corvair.
did they?
Yes, and it was with the engine in the back, and it had a gas heater
Wow,
run on the same gas that the car burned.
right. But you're right, Evinrude.
Yeah.
It's got here
Yeah,
Evinrude
yeah,
dealer.
that's
And
right.
this one says authorized Westinghouse dealer.
Oh, that I didn't know. That's before my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what he sold that would be Westinghouse.
Well,
Could be anything.
would be stoves and fridges, I guess.
Maybe, eh?
I don't know if they had. Well, Westinghouse, I guess, made
Maybe
washing
that-
machines too.
Maybe that's why he's got lots of recipes in here.
Yeah.
I just see fish recipes and luncheon dishes and dinner in a
Yeah,
skillet.
they had Shell gas and oil. That's what it was.
Okay, so there we've got exactly what dealers he
Yeah.
was then,
Yeah.
and quite a few different ones then.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. He was a businessman, but he was pretty shrewd. Like he wanted, if he had a chance to make a buck, he made a buck. But he'd also give you a fair deal.
Right,
You know,
right.
he wasn't.
I think he got involved with the high school and I'm trying to think when they had they taught the kids to drive.
Driver's
right?
ed?
Driver's ed.
Could be. I can't
I th-
really remember. If
Okay,
he was
I
into
think
that.
I remember him donating a vehicle
Yeah.
for them to use.
That
And
could be.
likely Doug Numbers
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
involved in
Doug
that
Numbers
for-
was in that.
in the high school. Right, I remember that for sure. But interesting time. Now, when did young Harold?
Come into the picture.
Yes, he did.
Well, after he finished high school or university, I don't know if he went to university, but anyway, he came in as, just part of the family, and he was kind of involved in, not in the shop end of it, but in the front end, parts
Okay.
and sales, and trying to learn the whole business aspect of it. But I don't know if he ever really had a heart for that type of business. And the younger brother Leslie was there.
Right.
He was in the parts more so than Harold.
Okay.
But unfortunately, he passed away not too long after he had been there.
Oh,
I forget
okay.
the circumstances, but anyway, he passed away.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh, I just-
Connie was the only one of the girls that worked in the office.
Right. I remember her.
Yeah.
I remember them getting an award or something from the fire department, and
Yeah.
she is in the picture that I
Yeah.
took of her. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Did she live in Thunder Bay too, or she lived here?
No, she lived here.
I thought she did.
In an apartment, perhaps.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Any other memories then of little things that happened, or
There were some, but they just have to come to me.
okay? So did you sort of retire from there?
Oh, okay, I can get back to something just came to me. When Eddie Belanger became the service manager after Ken Dooley.
Right.
So I worked under Eddie, and then Eddie he took the BA over. The BA service station.
Yeah. Which for most people now is the petrol corner, right?
Yes,
the petrol
exactly.
corner at Cameron Falls
Yeah.
Road.
So anyway, that's then when I became the service manager there.
Oh, okay.
And it was in those years then Harold Clark purchased the first oscilloscope for diagnosing vehicles.
Oh.
And I have some newspaper clippings I have taken, but I couldn't find them for this event
Okay.
where I was promoted to service manager, and the parts people were there, and all of us. That Heinz Walters was in the shop crew at that time, and Wilfred Lundquist, he was with us, and then the parts people, Matt, Joe, and Walter.
Right.
So it was there was an article in the local paper about that. So I was then service manager from then till 69, when Hank Gerlach decided to get out of the business. And sometime, when you're working for somebody, you feel it'd be nice to be your own boss. Well, that opportunity was presented to me to move over there, and
So Hank had the garage across the road,
yeah, which
And
is now a parking lot.
the parking lot beside the Legion.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Nipigon Service was a landmark there.
Right. Right.
It was a log building, and totally out of date for any current features that you needed for servicing vehicles. It had one hoist. But anyway, I did bite the bullet and go into a partnership with Leo Plemmel.
Oh, right.
And I spent 4 years there. I had plenty of work, but I saw no future in the auto service industry then.
Right.
Plus, I had no pension plan.
Mm.
So I told myself I have to go somewhere where there is a pension plan.
Just to go back for a minute, what was Leo's? Did he have a
He-
store there?
There was a few confectionery things, and he looked after the gas pumps.
Oh, right. Okay.
Public service parts, and I was the shop. I looked
Right.
after the shop,
Okay.
and he served gas because we had the gas pumps there.
Right.
But anyway, getting back to the pension plan, I then applied to Red Rock and went for an interview and was accepted to go there, and that's the best move I made then. I mean, I left, I had lots of customers and a lot of requests to do work after on my own, but I denied everything. I
Right.
said, I left it for a reason, so I'm not going to start that.
So where did you work in the mill?
I was in the motor mechanic department doing the same mechanical work as I did. The only thing, I didn't have to deal with customers.
Right.
We had to maintain all the mill equipment, so it was available for the mill people that were operating them. And
Right. Right.
so actually our customers were all throughout the mill. They were actually like customers.
Right.
We had to make sure the equipment was available and ready to go.
Mm.
So
So how long did you work at the mill?
I worked there 28 years and 3 days.
Oh, wow. You have a long work career.
I do. I started when I was 14 years old.
Yeah, wow. So you ended up with a pension in the end.
I did, and if I didn't do that, I don't know where I'd be today.
Right, right.
I mean, pension is a pension, but and they say, well, it's never enough. But
Yeah.
boy, what a difference it makes
Yes.
when, because CPP and OAS does not cut it anymore.
Right. And just think, there were people, I just remember from Herman saying, there were people who chose not to get the pension plan when they
Well,
worked at the mill. And I often wonder if they kicked themselves.
I was told that
For
some
not-
of them had been there for
Yes.
20 years.
Yes, and never
and
joined.
never joined. And you had to work a year before you were eligible to join.
Right,
And I joined soon as I was eligible. I
So-
said I wasn't going to miss out on this opportunity.
right, right. And now when you look at the workforce now, there's not very many people with pensions.
That's right. Those jobs aren't there anymore.
No, the jobs aren't there.
So I just I don't know what made me think that way, but I told myself I have to go
Right.
somewhere, and that was the only place locally that
Right,
was in my field of work
right,
and with a pension plan.
right. Very fortunate.
Yes, and I became, after Alfie Saracen, he was the lead hand in the crew when I went there, and he then went on his own. He left the mill, so I got his job then, being a
Oh.
lead hand in the crew. It was called a working foreman.
Right, right. Oh,
So it was interesting, and I always gave them a day's work. They paid me well,
right.
but I gave them a day's
Right.
work. I never
Right.
left there with a guilty conscience that I sloughed my way through that day.
Right, right. Anyway, you had a good founding career at Clark Motors, that
Absolutely. Yeah.
apprenticeship especially,
Well, yeah.
that stood you in good stead over at the mill.
And it was not an easy challenge for me because I never had any high school. So I had to have 2 10-week periods in Toronto at the Provincial Institute of Trades. There's a
Okay.
basic and an advanced.
Right,
So it was like bumping you up instantly into grade 10 category. And I stayed there I never came home in 10 weeks. I spent the weeks there and
right.
came home, and then I had to work another year or two to go for the advanced.
Wow,
And then I wrote the license in Thunder Bay, and I did achieve my red seal, which is Canada-wide
right. Wow.
license. So,
Self-made man, Wilbur.
well,
You were.
I guess I had a work ethic, and
You're right.
I,
And that's what counted in those days, I think, eh?
well,
Yeah.
for me anyway,
Yes,
it did.
it did. Got a lot of people.
I never had to submit a resume when I went for a job.
Right.
I was ready. My mitts were ready with me.
Oh. Anyway, that's good. I think we'll wind that up, and thank you very much, Wilbert.
You're welcome.
Wilbert.
Yes.
God, I'm going to remember that now after I say your name a dozen times.